they're interchanged. So silver and what's going on in Ukraine, how they are connected, what people might want to be aware of in any order that you see fit. And I'll just step back and listen. Well, hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics. We're recording on Thursday, March 10th. This will be posted Friday, March 11th. Certainly a lot of things going on in Ukraine with Russia and sanctions. Also a lot of news information that's not so easy to decipher what is fact from fiction. Meanwhile, the silver market sure seems on the ropes to me, despite some of the counterintuitive pricing this week. But every dealer I hear from sounds like people are buying a lot of physical silver. So we're going to dig into this quickly today. This will not be necessarily a long one, although you do get the beach view as my eye is healing up. So today you're going to get beach rather than seeing me, but I am doing all right, and hopefully you can enjoy something relaxing in today's chaotic markets. And fortunately, to make some sense out of this, Ryan Gavrieli, I think I said the last name right this time, who you've seen on the channel before, I believe. We posted an interview I've done with him, and he's a student of Austrian economics, has a great YouTube channel, is also a lot more well-tuned to what is going on in this Ukrainian situation than I am, or most people I know. So, Ryan, it's great to have you here today. Thanks for checking in during this fascinating time in the planet. How are you doing?
I'm doing great, Chris. Thanks for having me.
Well, appreciate you being here. I see some cool books in the background there, some Ayn Rand. So clearly you understand logic better than anyone who's held political office in the U.S. Why don't we dig right in? I mean, I guess they're interchanged. So silver and what's going on in Ukraine, how they are connected, what people might want to be aware of in any order that you see fit. And I'll just step back and listen.
All right. So I will just want to backtrack, and I will say that I'm not like a geopolitical expert. My channel on YouTube, I'm talking about finance and gold and silver and what's going on, with the economy. But that taught me that a lot of the things that we are being told are not true. And I think people that are watching your channel, Chris, they know that, for example, they tell them that the dollar is money, but they don't know that it's being inflated away, and some government people and the rich are stealing away their purchasing power by inflating it. So there is a lot of lies, and that's things that I have learned over the past few years, and especially over the last 2 years. We have been told so many lies. I will not say about what, but I think everyone understands what I mean. So many lies. So the first thing, when this Ukrainian situation started, I noticed that all of the media, all of the mainstream medias, they aligned into one narrative, which was basically like, Ukraine is good, Russia is bad, Putin is crazy. And I started investigating a little bit. So I found some videos by a professor. His name was John Marshmeyer, and he explained that this is basically not as simple as we are being told it is. There is like reasons why Russia is going to Ukraine. Basically, they see Ukraine joining NATO as an existential threat, and for them that's existential threat, and the West have been ignoring them for the past 20 years. Now, how do you know that that's true? What I think is that because it's just consistent. For 20 years they have had the same worries, but they were too small. As we all know, Russia used to be the part of the USSR, and the USSR collapsed, and they were really poor in the early 2000s. And now they're not so weak, so they can actually put a line in the sand and said this is not enough. Now, whether you believe this or not, there is a big lie going on right now, which is all the politicians, Joe Biden, and if you're in Europe, then people in the European Union, they are telling us that inflation is now fault of the Russians. The Russians did it, and that's not true, because we all know that,
except for Jerome Powell. Anybody except for him or Biden, it could be your fault, but it's definitely not Jerome Powell or Joe Biden's fault. That much we know, right?
For sure, not Jerome Powell. He said inflation is transitory. Soon it's going to be inflation is the Russians' fault,
course.
The Russians ate our homework.
They do that a lot, don't they?
Yeah. So our politicians, they never take like responsibility, and now they're gonna blame everything on the Russians, and they're gonna say the Russians did it, but that's not true because we all know that the fuel prices went up way before the Russians invaded Ukraine. And of course, this invasion is gonna cause things to get worse, and of course, the sanctions are gonna cause things to get worse. And it's already causing that. We have all seen it when we went to put some fuel in the car or in our electricity bill. It's so crazy that I saw a post on Twitter that some guy to supercharge a Tesla right now is more expensive than to put fuel in a car, because the electricity went up a lot more than fuel. Fuel went up maybe 40%, but the electricity went up like a few times. Like in Europe, there is places where electricity is like up 5 times. Because of what's going on with the natural gas. And another lie is that the West is acting like it can just, the same like with our money is fake. They think that they can just flip their fingers and they're gonna sanction Russia. But I think that Russia got a lot of leverage on the West. So for every, let's say, 1 point that you punish Russia for 1 point, you are punishing yourself for like 5, because they got all the stuff. They got all the commodities. They got 48% of the entire production of palladium in the world, and you can't make cars without palladium, at least if you want to make them green, because that's the part, that's the catalytic converter is made of palladium. It's what catches all the bad smoke that is coming from the engine. And if you look on
I'm sorry, quick question on palladium. Will the car still function if you just put a COMEX contract in there instead of the actual metal?
yeah, maybe you can put like a paper palladium contract inside, and we make a catalytic converter from contracts.
I heard that was Joe Biden's plan on that one. I mean, obviously he said last week that inflation was under control, and he was going to fix it. And then this week, it's just Russia's fault, but he's not going to fix it. So a lot to keep track of, and continue, please, now that we've made that clarification.
Yeah, and it's crazy that he went to Venezuela for like to communists to ask for help from the communists, and they don't really particularly like the US down there. And now we are going to beg them to give us fuel. Like what the hell is with that?
Yeah, it was quite fitting. I mean, I guess I know there's a lot of different perspectives on this matter right now, yet it's odd to me that all of a sudden the entire world is pulling out of Russia and without seemingly knowing much about the situation as you do. And I mean, haven't the US government been going into a lot of other places and bullying people around where Joe Biden never seemed to find that so offensive, Venezuela being one of them? So, I mean, am I imagining that, or is that true that, from if you stop saying, well, I'm from America, so I'm going to support our emperor no matter what he does or says or kills? I mean, it is a bit hypocritical. I'm not the only one seeing that.
No, it's crazy that he goes to Venezuela. And I don't know if you heard, but this news came out like 2 days ago, and the Russians said that they captured biolabs, so bioweapons that were funded by the United States in Ukraine. And actually, I heard about it like 2 weeks ago. I just saw some post about it online, and I just said, well, that's probably bullshit. I didn't really believe it. And when the Russian came out and said it, it looks pretty serious, because like their like #1 general is sitting in front of this press conference and it's reading from a paper. It looks really serious, but you still may say maybe they're lying. But the next day, you've had Victoria Nuland from the US commenting on that on the Congress, and she basically said that yeah, there is biolabs in Ukraine, but she said something like, if there is a bioweapon attack, that's the Russians. And that just sounds so sketchy and, I mean, so crazy. And I think everything fits. I think the reason that the politicians, especially in the US, and I think Europe is more like they just listen to what US tells them to do. So if the US tells them now sanction Russia, they're doing it even if it's not good for them. But I think a lot of politicians have a lot of shady business in the Ukraine. Ukraine is not like one of these nice democracies. It's like very, very corrupt country. Obviously, the people are there are dirt poor because their government have been stealing for them for 30 years since this country has been founded. So and I remember that just around what, a year and a half ago, when it was this election in the US, there was stories about Hunter Biden and Biden having some energy deals in the Ukraine. So I think it all fits. I think there is a lot of shady deals where politicians are going there, and that's how they are becoming millionaires. You know, this politician, he goes into office, he gets a good salary, maybe 200,000 a year. But then after like 5 years, he has like $50 million in the bank or $100 million. How does that happen? So I think all of them, they're freaking out because one, their piggy bank is being destroyed because Russia is in there. And second, all of the bad information and all of the things that they do there that is criminal is going to come out. And I think that's why there is such a huge freak out about this Ukraine, because since when does the West care about any war? Like, there is wars around the world everywhere, and they don't care about any of it. But suddenly about Ukraine, they care. And if we connect it to silver, well, I think we are approaching what my friend and your friend, our common friend Rafi would say, the end game. Because I think realities and physics is going to hit these politicians in the face when they think that they can just flip their fingers, then everything is, whatever they want is going to happen. But we are starting to hit like physical limits with like commodities not coming from Russia, and things like the factories of Michelin in Europe are closing down, and all sorts of factories are closing down because there is just no commodities coming, and except the price of fuel that is going sky high. So what do you think about that? I mean, it's I think we are approaching the end game here.
Yeah, it sounds like they're not accepting those Jeff Curry oil IOUs anymore. Go figure that. Rand, you mentioned something about the biolabs, Hunter Biden, that certainly I'd never heard about before, but in the last 2 weeks I've been hearing about plenty. Like you said, I mean, it's hard to know some of these times what's true, although, I mean, it's kind of like you can look at Joe Biden and you know he's lying. I mean, so that at least is a starting point for me. And, you know, in the
When
end,
he's
it's
not
like now
forgetting
here,
what he's talking about.
yeah, although they say they're, you know, they've been sending guns, they won $12 billion to send missiles, and it's like, are they just dropping them off and leaving them? You know, the guy that they're leaving it with, Zelensky, seems to be quite a character. I mean, perhaps not shocking that he's friends with Hunter Biden. I mean, they seem to have a bit in common. Maybe Hunter Biden liked his gothic music video where he was kind of doing a
I
bizarre
think they have a
description.
shared love for Coke. I don't know if you saw, there was one time he came on the press and he looked like he's totally stoned, and that was crazy. It was like 3 days ago or something. He was almost
Yeah,
for sure on drugs. It was
good.
crazy.
Well, you know, it's you know, more significantly though, I mean, hey, I don't care what the guy does personally, but you know, when they're, you know, doing things that affect other people is where I get a little concerned. And you know, we hear about these biolabs. Also, it's interesting. There's tomorrow's March 11th, which is apparently, I'm told, when Russia is turned off from SWIFT. Here, it's also the 2-year anniversary of when we went on to this COVID thing. And you know, I also have seen this Illuminati card game, and I wonder sometimes, are these just the plays that they have, and they're going to run them no matter how ridiculous or unbelievable they are? And that's the feeling I get, you know, and I would be concerned hearing biolabs, and that even Newland acknowledges that. Some things to be concerned about, and it seems like a lot of people are just taking Joe's word for it, which to me is concerning in and of itself. But is that a fair way of looking at it? I know there's a lot of tension where people say, "Well, that's un-American." I mean, I'm trying to be honest, but that's where I'm left. And is that a reasonable perception at this point?
Well, I think you're right, and I think that Newland would never acknowledge the biolabs if this was a fake story. She would say the Russian are lying. So I believe that the Russian really got some information, and she's trying to run ahead of the story. Because if you can't prove that it's lies, you're going to try to change the narrative. Oh, it's not weapons lab. it's a defensive biolabs, or you will try to run ahead of the story and try to do like a damage control. So I think this is a real story, and I mean, that's what I think. And beside that, I think the story is sad. I mean, the Ukrainian people are really suffering. It's a war. It's not something good. And I'm not on the side of any of them, not on the side of Russians or the Ukrainians, but I don't think this situation is very complicated, and the media is trying to make it like it's very simple, like like a comic movie. Like there is the good guys and the bad guys, and we are the good guys, and they're just bad, and there is no reason why they do stuff. And it's actually, I think it's more like war games between Russia and the US, where Ukraine is just got stuck in the middle, and the Ukrainian people have very corrupt politicians, which they deserve better.
Yeah, it doesn't sound ideal, especially because, at least Putin, he, like, gives you an answer to things, whereas the US, they keep, weapons of mass destruction. We're still waiting for the answer on not only why those weren't found, but why they did a false flag showing white powder saying we have it. Then we knew damn later they lied about it. So,
Exactly.
Rand, did
and
you
this
happen
is actual weapons of mass destruction. Bioweapons is mass destruction. This is like worse than a nuke. I mean, it's crazy.
And Rand, along those lines, did you happen to catch this press conference? I think the guy's name was Ned Price, which was just so perfect. It was some guy in the state office where he was saying, we're going to go after Putin. He's doing this and that. And they're saying, all right, well, what is the evidence that you have? And he was dancing around. It was almost like Inspector Clouseau mixed with the Three Stooges. I mean, they'll do anything to avoid ever showing this evidence. They always claim they have. You're a lot closer to this than I am, but I remember back, it was 2014, the first time I heard Obama say, well, the Syrian, they're using the chemical weapons. We have the evidence. They claim to have the evidence even before their UN weapons inspectors went in, which makes me wonder how that adds up. And it's like they recycle the same story every 2 years, but never show the evidence. It's like, what are people supposed to think?
I don't know. I'm just surprised that people are still listening to the mainstream news for anything, because if someone is lying to you constantly, why would you listen to him at all? He's not credible. So that's the great mystery, especially even people that were their eyes were opened in the last 2 years. I've seen a lot of them blindly believing what the media is telling them, and I was shocked. I thought we are already past that point, but apparently we are not.
Definitely not. Rand, last one for you before we wrap up here. This is all good stuff, and you touched on silver a little bit. Again, we have whatever is going to actually occur on March 11th. Even aside from what Putin or Biden has said now, it seems like it's still in the phase of, you did this, I'm going to hit you back harder with no end in sight. I personally think that, whatever the story in Ukraine aside, that these policies have left Americans in a really dangerous spot with an already fragile economy that, they lie about, to get people juicing up the stock market. I mean, you're running out of parts. Inflation is soaring, yet somehow that doesn't affect any American stock. It just rallies seemingly every day. We're seeing people really get scared. They're seeing accounts get frozen. So people are buying silver faster than ever. I'm hearing more talk about dislocation over the weekend, perhaps some sort of spark in the metals on the open Sunday night. Obviously no one can really know that for sure, but the factors for another Lehman-like event are in place. So in wrapping up, any thoughts of what we'll see over the next couple of days, or or the next weeks, or any you're able to tell anything in regards to silver, of whether we're at a break point yet?
Yeah, so I think that if things are not de-escalating, which it looks like they're not going to, if things are not de-escalating, then energy prices are going to keep going higher. I think we're going to see $10 a gallon to fill up your car in the US, which is for the US it's insane. In Europe, there is a lot of taxes on fuel, and I think if this is not stopped, and frankly I think it started like a domino effect. People are now rushing into the silver and the gold, We have seen it on the COMEX with the amount of contracts open. And personally, I was going to order silver from my it's one of the, it's called the European Mint. It's one of the biggest mint in Europe. And I want to buy Philharmonics. It's a very nice coin from Austria. So I just waited 2 or 3 days, and there was like a few thousand of them available, and it ran out. Now there's only like not so nice coins, but I'm still gonna order because the silver is silver. Doesn't matter what kind of sticker it has on it. So I think that there is a rush into physical. It's still not the one that will maybe break the COMEX, but we're going there. And it all depends on what things are changing really rapidly. So it's hard to predict, but if things are not de-escalating, we will see start to see shortages in gas and the oil, especially if Russia will hit back in the end. You can't expect them to get all the sanctions and not hit back, and they hold all the gas and oil to Europe. If they decided to close the pipes, it's going to be blackouts in Europe. So if this is not de-escalating, I believe we are approaching very fast the end game. And if anyone here is still like on the fences and doesn't have any physical silver, personally, I would rush to buy, because when there is a crisis, you just can't get it. And I remember from March 2020, when the price crashed, you just couldn't get the silver without paying 50% premiums or more. So that's my closing point.
Yeah, well, that's pretty well said. And especially one last thing I will mention, and I'm sure you've seen the last couple of days, now there's this congressional act going around, Stop Russia's Gold Now, whatever that means. Interesting that all of a sudden someone in Congress can actually spell gold, unlike Ben Bernanke. And
Yeah.
I wonder what's really going on behind that. But if now they're trying to get gold, that sounds desperate to me. So again, more than anything, I hope people are safe out there. It's really sad because even aside from how this thing shakes out, when you think about it, people around the globe have been terrorized by government for the last 2 years. Nothing will ever change that. They were forced to stay in their home. They're forced to shut down businesses. They're forced to go through this stuff. Now we're forced to, many of them turn to gold and silver to keep their money safe as the prices of things are going up. And now they're becoming unavailable. And I still think that we're going to have the gold and silver surge in the end, but it's like damage has been done here. This is the definition of terrorism. It's sad. And just hope people are staying safe throughout that. It's not an easy emotional time, but some days I guess it's fun to look at the prices of things. Other days, maybe just best to take a nap. And as much as you can do to remain calm, I find is what I focus on these days. But Ran, in either case, I appreciate you sharing this information with us. Not easy to figure out. And before I let you go, how can people find you and your great YouTube channel and the other stuff you're doing?
Yeah, so people can find me on Ran Gavrieli YouTube channel. So that is RAN GAVRIELY, and it's the same name on Twitter. So it's but on Twitter it's like upside down. So it's at Gavrieli Ran. So you can find me either on YouTube or on Twitter. And I post weekly, a few, like 2-3 videos a week. I talk about these kind of things. I talk about gold and silver and the inflation and what the Fed are doing. So yeah, come and check the channel.
Well, I sure appreciate that. You're doing some good stuff. I know you have another couple interviews lined up today, and it's really great to hear that people are recognizing what you're doing, the kind of man you are, what you stand up for and speak about. So we'll let you run, but link to Rand's great channel in the description field below, and we'll have to do this again soon, my friend.
Thanks, Chris. It was really fun.